IVM.
Hi, welcome to a show about crypto. And whenever I start a conversation about crypto, the first question that inevitably comes up is, but dude, isn't crypto illegal in India? So here's a myth that I want to get at the bottom of one way or another. And because I do not have the expertise to do it myself, I'm joined today by Mr. Varun Sethi, who is a blockchain lawyer and describes himself as a tech evangelist, among other things, and a reluctant poet, which we will also get to at some point. So Varun, I'm just going to jump right into it. Is cryptocurrency illegal in India?
Well, let me buzz this myth right in the first 5 seconds of this podcast. Cryptocurrency was never illegal in India. Not today, not in the past, and hopefully not in the future.
Dun, dun, dun.
So from that perspective, the myth around it is that, it is illegal. And I'll share a little anecdote here. I hired an intern in 2017-18, and she left in one day. Simply because when her mother came to know that she's working in a firm which does some work in cryptos, even though we did not accept any cryptos at that time or whatever, the mother simply called me up and say, oh, no. So just to make things clear from a legal perspective, the point is that there was a ring fencing restriction imposed by Reserve Bank of India, which is very logical because at that time, any Tom and Harry was coming up with its own coin, and they were offering it to public. And public being vulnerable, given they were sort of offering 240% returns, 300% returns, and those kind of things, right? So what Reserve Bank of India did was that it said that you cannot convert cryptos to fiat currency, which is INR in India, or similarly, these kind of restrictions have been imposed in other countries as well. So from that perspective, people thought that, okay, we are buying an asset, let's say a Bitcoin, which is illiquid because we cannot convert it as per our own comfort. And that then sort of became to be called as it is illegal to hold because you cannot convert it. There is taxation which is not very clear, and thereby the ring fencing restriction by the Reserve Bank of India came to be known as the illegality of it. However, it is very clear. 2013, since then, Reserve Bank of India has come up with 6 notifications, which is right there on their website, freely available. It only mentions that crypto is a high-risk asset class. These are the words. High-risk asset class. And in case you are dealing with
that's my Tinder bio. Hey, that's my Tinder bio.
Very nice. Let me laugh about it. Very nice. So it's a high-risk asset class. And being high-risk asset class, more than standard level of due diligence is expected. This is what the Reserve Bank of India has been stating. Never in its public notifications has either Reserve Bank of India or SEBI, we've written 6 letters, including SEBI to Ministry of Corporate Affairs, to Income Tax Department, GST Department, even to the Investor Education Protection Fund. None of them claimed, and rightfully so, they cannot claim that the cryptos is illegal in India, primarily because there's a legal glitch to it also. So you need to first identify the asset class and then decide whether it is illegal or legal. So they have not yet identified it as an asset class. That is the reason why it'll take more time, but that's a good fun part of it. There is surely lawlessness there, but it is surely never illegal in India.
Well, thank you so much. That's our episode. Thank you for being here. No, I'm kidding. You very quickly just now mentioned that you mentioned 2013 and you mentioned multiple letters written and outreach to people. So if we can, let's go back there, because I feel like sometimes crypto feels like something that's just showed up on people's radar, and at least it feels like that's the impression that they have about the crypto market at large, where it feels like, it wasn't there, and suddenly somewhere around 2017, 2018, the word started showing up in like the public consciousness, and here we go. So take me back to 2013, and what I'm trying to understand is, how does the process of sort of advocating for an asset class like this and negotiating with people like the RBI and other institutions and stakeholders work? So I'd like to understand the history of, because I know that's something that you've been involved with. I believe that you're also a huge proponent of using RTIs and engaging directly with ministries and institutions to just get answers as opposed to speculating. So please take me through the history of crypto advocacy and engagement with institutions in India.
So we all know that in 2009, the concept of Bitcoin was started through a white paper by a person or a group of people known as Satoshi Nakamoto. People even to the current day do not know who that person is. However, what is important here is that the logic that they built in was a radical improvement to the current financial ecosystem of the world. And that is the reason why people around the world got excited. One of my pinned tweets in Twitter says that blockchain kills centralized corruption. So I'm a great advocate for that concept that blockchain eventually will kill the centralized level decision making, as well as because the centralized decision making, corruption seeps in. So going back again from a legal perspective, Indian authorities, I think, needs to be appreciated, because as early as 2013, when people did not, or there was no Ethereum at that time. So Ethereum came in 2015. At that time also, there must be some people doing something which RBI was able to proactively identify. And the first notification that came from Reserve Bank of India, even though it was just 4 lines, but those 4 lines are strong enough. It simply says that virtual currencies, it calls it VCs at that time. So virtual currencies are high risk asset class, and more than standard level due diligence is expected for people who are engaging themselves. So you're doing it at your own risk. That thing is still there on the Reserve Bank of India's website, which is extraordinary because it is as early as 2013. And since then, 2013, 14, 16, post Ethereum in 2016, they came up. 2017, they got a bit more aggressive because the volume soared up and the price of Bitcoin soared up from, say, a few $100 to $1,000 and more. That is the reason that in 2017, we call it a breakthrough year, because lots of global players came into India. Indian people started getting jobs in crypto companies, and thereby start getting their salaries in cryptos and those kind of things. And people were totally unaware of what to do. Where do I keep it? There were risks involved. We also see, I think I should touch upon this concept as well, because we generally talk about good concepts, but let's talk about this as well. 2017 was the year of the ICO, which is the initial coin offering. And any Tom and Harry was raising those funds. But 2018 is also the year of scams. It had the highest level of scams in the entire last 10 years of blockchain or Bitcoin history. And that is the reason why, because when you raise, I know people who raised up, say, $100 million worth of USDT, and then they did not even have a team. They did not even have an idea. Only on the basis of a few pages of white paper, they were able to raise funds. So those challenges
it was the Wild West essentially at this point. Like it's just all manner of speculation.
So we feel that even though the claim from the Securities Exchange Board of India is that these data about what was the outcome of the study towards to Japan and Switzerland is confidential, but I still feel, looking at what Reserve Bank of India has been proactively doing, SEBI should also have come up stating that, because every crypto does have a touch of securities law attached to it. So we also feel that other than Reserve Bank of India, the second most relevant authority is the Securities Exchange Board of India. So we feel that the taxation will come a bit later, but these two authorities, Reserve Bank of India and the Securities Exchange Board of India, are two most important, relevant authorities in India to decide about the legal frameworks for cryptos. And post that, of course, we can have the GST department as well as the income tax department step in to decide. Currently, I think from an Indian perspective, we are still speculating whether it's a digital asset, whether it's an asset thing, is a separate asset class, or is it some kind of a security or something in between. So I think we're still stuck between those questions, at least in India.
Okay, so then in that case, if we're still stuck between those questions, it's in this gray area. So are you saying at this point it's just not classified as an asset in any way?
The Honorable Supreme Court in India, as early as March 2020, came up with a judgment, and this was after 2.5 years of analysis and understanding what was going on in the global scenario. March 4th, 2020 is a very relevant date in the crypto regulations in India, because in a 180-page Supreme Court judgment, the court clearly stated that cryptocurrency exchanges can operate in India. There's nothing illegal about it. That's one. And second, it also drew references from at least 36 countries of the world, wherein in some countries it was considered as digital asset. In some countries, they were still speculating to decide whether it is to be merged with some existing asset class. And in some other countries, they were analyzing even as a means of exchange. Like the recent example, we have El Salvador less than 2 months ago considering Bitcoin as a legal tender in their country. So it is those kind of countries which we feel will trigger some regulatory frameworks. And then, of course, we've got examples like Japan, which is the other extreme. You can buy a cup of maybe Starbucks coffee in Japan using cryptos. Similarly, very interestingly, UK has come up with digital asset taxation frameworks by the HMRC. It's right there on the HMRC website, which is equivalent of the income tax department. So the Supreme Court in India did rather deep research to come up with all these updates and then mention that we are now allowing cryptos in India with clear conversions from cryptos to fiat and vice versa as well. And that is the reason why we feel that even though India currently has not categorized it as separate asset class, but we are moving towards it based on that Supreme Court judgment.
Thank you for clearing that up. So to take off from what you said, when you convert crypto back to fiat, so how does taxation on crypto work currently in terms of, or rather say, any gains from cryptocurrency trading? What would that fall under?
Correct. So we did write a letter as early as 2018 to the Income Tax Department as well as the GST Department regarding what are their thoughts around it. And we were expecting that they would come up with some response. However, we could not get any response from the GST or the Income Tax Department to our right to information application. However, when we look west and we look east, and then we realize that, okay, there are some countries who've actually come up with very elaborate taxation frameworks. Two of the most elaborate taxation jurisdictions can be Wyoming, which clearly mentions it as a property, a digital property, and also UK, which clearly mentions it as a separate digital asset class. Japan, of course, and El Salvador today considers it as a medium of exchange. You can just keep it just like you keep currency notes. Again, from a taxation perspective, talking about India, I think it falls very similar to a capital gains asset. So say, for example, if you're an occasional trader, if you just buy it and just keep it for capital appreciations, in that case, you've got to pay capital gains tax. However, if you're a frequent trader, we generally recommend that in case you're a frequent trader and the objective is to earn regular profits, it is your core business. In that case, you've got to make a small balance sheet, disclose it as other current assets in the current income tax return. Currently, there is no separate field in the Indian income tax return, but calling it as other current assets, disclosing it, paying the business level taxation in that should be the two most ideal methods of disclosure. So if you're infrequent trader, capital gains. If you're a frequent trader, business and business profits are to be disclosed and taxation paid.
Thank you. That is legitimately the clearest answer I've gotten on the subject so far. So I appreciate that. You mentioned a bunch of other jurisdictions where they have elaborate sort of taxation rules and they have elaborate policies. But one of the things that's been interesting over the last couple of weeks to watch is what's happening in America with regards to cryptocurrency regulation. And there's been a flurry of activity that's left a lot of hearts and mouths. Could you explain a little bit? Because again, I feel like these are big and important markets and this is my understanding, that in the world, it's that when markets like say America and China make moves, the world notices and takes cues. So I'm just trying to understand what's going on in America currently.
Okay, let's take a couple of steps back and understand what has been going on in the last few years.
Sure.
The biggest mover in this space in the American ecosystem has been the state of Wyoming. Now, state of Wyoming has invested about 2 years' time in developing the legal framework for cryptos, and it has one of the most elaborate legal frameworks in cryptos, not only in America, but in the world. Now, technically speaking, cryptos in Wyoming are termed as property, and property is a state subject. That is, it is the Wyoming government that takes a decision, and not the central government or the federal government at Washington that takes a call on how they are to be regulated. And because Wyoming is a smaller state, it gives the governors there lots of innovative ideas and opportunities to create legal frameworks. Now, using all the power that they have, the governors there have come up with 13 blockchain laws in Wyoming, and there are 2 more coming up. So those 13 blockchain laws clearly define what is a utility token. They're also coming up with a Chancery Bank, which is a specific crypto-specific bank. They're coming up with an institution called SPDI, which is a very smart institution. And why are we calling it smart? Now, lots of people think in a traditional bank, how do banks make money? You go deposit your funds in the bank, when bank finds out someone to lend money out, earn interest on them, then they give you back the interest. However, your money is at risk based on the judgment of the bank to give money to someone who can make the money and make the bank earn some interest based on the loans that they lend out.
Fair.
So these institutions that they are setting up in Wyoming, they are a no lend out bank. They will not lend out the money. So how do they earn? Say you deposit your cryptos there, they custody it, they charge you a certain fees. But then since they don't lend out, there is a 0% risk of default. Now, we feel that these kind of banks will surely come up in many other jurisdictions in the world. It is a no-risk bank. However, you've got to pay interest, but it gives you the power to custody your funds. Just like initially, let's say you've got 1 lakh rupee of cash, 2 lakh rupees of cash, 100 crore rupees of cash. You are worried where to keep that money. Similarly, that is the reason why you go to a bank. But then the bank lends out that money to someone else. And then the bank says, oh, sorry, we lent out to the wrong person. And that is the reason why the depositor's money is at risk. These banks that are instituted, that are now being constructed in Wyoming is a leapfrog. It's a massive step into the future. We feel that the future banks will be like this, that my money will not be at risk based on the judgment of the banker to lend out money to someone. And now what is happening in America, the current regulations, and of course there have been some other updates as well, like last year there was an income tax form, the IRS 9 form, wherein they also called for information about cryptos. However, then they had to withdraw that thing because people did not have sufficient. They were not collecting. Historically, they were not collecting all these transactions in cryptos. So currently, what is going on there is that the federal government is now trying to formulate certain policies, primarily from an anti-money laundering perspective, which is correct. However, they have missed out on a very massive concept of proof of work. Currently, they are just calling that, okay, something which is based on proof of work, and anything other than proof of work, which is proof of stake and many other methodologies, they have been kept out of the definition. And that is the reason why lawyers there and many other relevant crypto friendly firms have actually now started writing to the federal authorities that the current law that you're proposing is incorrect, and not only incorrect, it is also incomplete. We feel that I think that thing or these voices will reach to the federal authorities, and they will surely relook into what kind of regulation that they want to build. Now, specifically speaking, just to summarize what is going on currently, they are saying that anything and everything other than Bitcoin, if you come up with your own coin, then they may not legalize, or they may not accept this as a valid option being given to the general public to raise funds and trade in those currencies. So literally they are saying that other than one currency, either it is a CBDC or it is a Bitcoin, other than that, nothing is valid as per the American law. Now, similar challenges have been happening in Singapore as well. Even India, one of the, I would say, unpublished reports. It was an internal committee report. We also had identical regulatory proposals, but those things did not pass simply because when you test it out from a legal perspective, the Supreme Court actually overcame all these challenges, all these smaller committee reports, and had a macro level picture. From that perspective, it is important that what is happening in America is more like a federal push to counter the developments that are going on in Wyoming or in Ohio or in Iowa. Because if I give you an example, Iowa has actually come up with a bill which states that smart contracts can actually be termed at par with physical legal contracts. That's a very interesting one. It takes away some power from the federal. My conclusion to all these developments is that, this is what blockchain is. It gives power to the decentralized population in the world, and it takes away some powers from the centralized authorities. So the sooner the centralized authorities understand this, they'll be able to understand what is going on in the market. So from that perspective, it's a very good, very refreshing change if you are in the public and not in the central authorities.
No, it's interesting that you say that, because that actually brings me very neatly to my next question. Beyond a point, like, does legalizing or not legalizing of such a decentralized asset even matter, in the sense that what could central authorities do beyond a point if, like, with such decentralized assets?
Oh, got it. That's a very interesting one. I still feel that regulatory frameworks for even decentralized assets are very much needed. Generally, what happens, we see that when things are good, when Bitcoin prices are rising, it's $64,000 at one time, people feel that, okay, wonderful, this empowers me. We don't need central authorities. But at the end of it, when things go south, that is the reason why you need regulatory frameworks. It is when someone scams someone using some decentralized methodologies, do you require the support of regulatory authorities. So without regulatory authorities, I don't think so that even the decentralized mechanisms work. Yes, what it does is that it dilutes the ultimate centralization of power. But still, the protocols of how decentralized methodologies or decentralized transactions would work, you still need a framework for that, right? And that is the reason why I feel that regulatory authorities will not become redundant. They will need to upgrade themselves to this new revolution, which says that we know how to decide for ourselves. Central authorities should provide, I would say, a framework, and they should not be the decision-making authorities here. Currently, the problem with centralization is that it is framing the rules, it is collecting the taxes, and it is also deciding how things move. Now, what we are saying is that going forward, especially the banking sector, the fintech sector, we are saying that let's democratize these sectors, let people decide what they want to do, and the central authorities should still be there to ensure that no one breaks those decentralized rules. And there are penalty provisions which can be then enacted by the central authorities. So centralization will not go away, especially for law enforcement purposes, but for decision-making purposes is what we are saying. You need decentralization, democratic decentralization in decision-making process, which is currently centralized.
So you're basically saying, let the kids play among themselves, but let's just have an adult in the room to just make sure nothing goes wrong, as opposed to the adults controlling the play entirely.
Oh, brilliant.
Which I think is fair.
That's one of the most easiest way to put it. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Correct.
That's me, Varun. You're here to do the complex. I'm here to do the easy. I'm here to do this at my level of understanding. So in that case, final question before I let you go. With everything that you've said so far, with everything that looking to the future, how are you bullish on the sort of future of cryptocurrency regulation in India? I think it's the first time in my life I've used the word bullish in a sentence. Are you, like, in the sense with dealing with SEBI and dealing with RBI, do you feel like we're overall set up in a good place to have conversations with our institutions and central banks to be able to take this to a good place for everybody in the future?
Well, I would say India has already taken that giant step with the proactive step taken by the Supreme Court in March 2020. And that puts us well ahead in the race against many other nations in the world. We have analyzed about 76 crypto-friendly jurisdictions in the world. And I would put India's current regulation amongst the top 15 in the world. So from that perspective, we don't need an immediate and urgent requirement to set up something. Yes, of course, taxation is still unclear in India, but the things that I explained in this podcast, I still feel that you can still go forward and file your disclosures, pay your taxes on cryptos and go forward with it. I think the Supreme Court judgment is sufficient enough, even though it's 180 pages, not many people read it, but it's still sufficient enough to at least start a crypto startup in case you're interested in that, do a job in a crypto startup in case you are interested in this space. And looking further, I think more actions are needed, especially from SEBI, because there are lots of these cross-border transactions that happen in cryptos. Because of these cross-border transactions, we feel that SEBI and RBI are two very important authorities to step in and clear out the frameworks. But I would still say India, even with the current framework, is good enough. It requires more framework to be in the sort of top 5, top 7 countries in the world when it comes to cryptos. It'll take time. We look at other nations of the world, even Singapore for that matter. I did not mention Singapore. Singapore has taken more than 1.5 years to just come up with one digital asset offering guidelines. Other than that, it does not have any clear taxation rules, even though it is ranked among the top 3 or top 2 in the world when it comes to ease of doing business. So from that perspective, what India has done is pretty good. We are expecting other authorities to also step up, especially the taxation authorities, and come up with some frameworks. But we'll keep on doing our work. We'll keep on writing letters to these people, try to understand what's going on in their mind, and keep on sharing some updates about the world with these authorities so that they come up with more clear laws. With clearer laws, I'm sure more interns, more employees, more tech developers, more podcasters would surely join this space and make it even more decentralized. Currently, I think the world of blockchain is more centralized in India, so I think we need more decentralization.
And hopefully those interns and employees will not quit in a day because their parents found out what this is all about. Varun Sethi, thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you so much for your insights. I feel like I've learned a lot over this conversation. And thank you. And I look forward to talking with you some more in the future as this thing grows and grows and grows.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Super. Thank you.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Naan Curry, Sadaf and Archit stir up a hot pot of stories exploring the age-old breakfast of Old Delhi Nihari. This is a must-check-out from the #1 food podcast in India. We'd like to welcome Audiogan to the network. It's an old show about design. We want to kick off this season with Jay Datta, design-headed Make My Trip and Go Ivy Bo. He's also the founder of Design Up. Positively Unlimited gets a makeover. Check out the revamped show Say No to Drama with Chetna and learn how to avoid drama in your life. Home is where the heart is. Marathi Kirkitun helps us understand more about homes. On Smarter with Sid, Siddharth asks the pertinent question, is jealousy good for you? And on the Musafir Stories, get introduced to the headhunters of Nagaland. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any other show for that matter, please do tell a friend. Word of mouth is the best way to spread the word about a podcast you love. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, CET, Cred, Global Victoria, Bank of Baroda, Intuit India, and CoinSwitch Kuber.
Namaste, this is Cyrus Brocha. I am part of the government cancel culture program to remove rubbish off all the different streams available. So what we have is all the collected rubbish we put together on our show. It's called Cyrus Says. It's on IVM Podcast. You have to watch it and listen to it. It's on our app. It's on our website. It's on the YouTube channel. It's on Facebook. There are many different ways. Don't bother me and ask me how. You have to find out. We talk to different personalities. Many of them are known. Some are just people we meet downstairs and invite them up for chai. But the point is, it's fun and it's very therapeutic. So please join in and listen to Cyrus Says.